So it looks like Kyrie's not going to be playing basketball this year unless a couple scenarios happen, which I'm going to talk about in this video, and a couple other things. So before I get into that, if you're new to this channel, like and subscribe because it helps me out. I also appreciate it, and you'll get more content like the video you're about to see. Now that that's out of the way, let's get on to the video. So there's been a whole whirlwind of stuff that's happened with Kyrie in relation to vaccination status this year. First, he didn't show up to media day. He was at home because of COVID protocols. People were wondering if he got the vaccine. Then we later figured out that he did not get the vaccine because he wasn't going to be able to play at Barclays Center because they have a mandate that if you're going to be at a public event indoors, like the Barclays Center, which is where the Nets play, that you need to be vaccinated. And it came out that Kyrie won't be playing all the home games because he's not vaccinated, which is what we came to. He didn't openly speak about it because he wasn't at media day like Bradley Beal and Andrew Wiggins. But yeah, he's not vaccinated. He wasn't supposed to be playing home games and games in like Toronto, LA, all of the California teams, I think. He wasn't going to be able to play at because he's not vaccinated. And then the Nets kind of had a decision to make, and they eventually came to the conclusion that they're just not going to have Kyrie Irving be a part of the team at all. He's not able to do practices, home games, away games, anything. He's basically not a part of the team, but he's still on the roster. He is still a member of the Brooklyn Nets because he's not been traded. So the way I see it, there's 4 different scenarios that can happen. I know a lot of people have already talked about this, but I want to give my own spin on it and explain it. So the first scenario is that Kyrie gets traded, which is unlikely because he threatened to retire if he gets traded. So yeah, that's something. So a team gives up a player, like let's say Philly gives up Ben Simmons for Kyrie, which isn't going to happen probably because Philly came out and said they weren't going to try and get Kyrie. But hypothetically, right, Philly gives up Ben Simmons for Kyrie. You trade away Ben Simmons, the Nets get Ben Simmons, and you get Kyrie. You're like, oh yay, we get Kyrie. Cool, skilled player, Kyrie. Let's go. You get Kyrie, and then he's like, okay, I retire. So you gave up Ben Simmons. I don't care about all the backlash. A good player in this scenario. And you don't get anything in return because Kyrie's retired. So this probably isn't going to happen. Teams are going to be scared to trade for him. The next is that he sits out all year. This is more likely than him getting traded because I like Kyrie. I'm a Kyrie fan, but he's a pretty stubborn guy, as we've seen in the past with different stuff. So yeah, it's likely he just doesn't get the shot, sits out the entire year, and doesn't get paid. So yeah, that's a possibility. The next possibility is that New York lifts their vaccine mandate for indoor events like I talked about earlier. I can see this happening maybe if like herd immunity becomes a thing in the city and like a lot of people are vaccinated, then yeah, sure. Maybe it doesn't matter as much that Kyrie's unvaccinated. I could see that changing and Kyrie being able to play. Not super likely, but it could happen. And the last scenario that's decently likely to happen, I think it could happen, is Kyrie gets the vaccine and he plays this season, which I think is the best case scenario for the Brooklyn Nets because I think if you're the Nets, you don't want to trade Kyrie. But yeah, I could see KD and Harden convincing him to get the vaccine. Harden hasn't won a ring yet. Kevin Durant is very competitive. He didn't come to the Nets to just come to the Nets. He came to the Nets to win a ring with Kyrie Irving. He likes Kyrie Irving a lot. So I could see him talking to him about it. And same with Harden. I could see them convincing Kyrie to get the shot and play, which would help team morale, build chemistry, all that stuff, whatever. Another thing I heard is that Harden and Durant were in a meeting with Sean Marks that determined what they were going to do with Kyrie, which helped them come to the conclusion that Kyrie sits out until he gets the vaccine. I think this is good because it's kind of like an ultimatum for him and it makes him give like a definitive answer. So yeah, he could just tell them, okay, I'm going to get the shot and I can play with you guys. Or he can be very strong and say, I'm not going to get the shot. I don't believe in it, personal choice, whatever. And I could see that happening, or I could also see him just cutting off communication with the team and not doing anything. So either way, besides him actually getting the shot, it's a tough situation for Brooklyn. So my entire spin on this whole Kyrie situation, because this thing has kind of just became more prominent over the years, with this crazy theories, him sitting out, being injured, like all this stuff, it's really hard to see him go through all this stuff, because ever since probably 2015, 2016, when I started getting into basketball, like, Kyrie was one of the first players I really enjoyed watching, and that final series really got me into basketball in 2016, where he played out of his mind in the latter half of the series. So yeah, Kyrie is such a talented player, and it just feels like he's always got something going on, whether it be injury with, I think he had a shoulder thing, had a torn meniscus in the finals, another knee issue, personal things, him sitting out last year due to personal reasons. There's just always something with him, and it seems like he hates NBA media and those people. And it seems like There's not a doubt in my mind that he gets better at basketball every single day and plays it. I just don't think he really likes the NBA and the organization as a whole, but he loves the sport and he's really good at it. Kyrie is the greatest ball handler that we have ever seen. His ability to create space, size up his defenders, play at different paces is ridiculous, and it's insanely fun to watch. He's an incredibly good shooter. He's a really gifted passer. He could average 10 assists per game if he wanted to. This is a different argument, but if he wasn't as selfish, I'm not saying he's selfish, but like if he was selfless and gave up the ball more, he's a really gifted passer. He could average 10 assists. Whole separate thing. He's okay on defense. He doesn't really help you, but he doesn't necessarily hurt you unless he's really just not feeling it. He's a smart defender with high IQ. He just doesn't always apply it, if that makes sense. And it's just really hard to see because I really like Kyrie, but he feels so stuck in his own ways and feels like he has a need to like go against authority. And like if he played an entire season, he would be so good. He had one of his best seasons last year. Joined the 50-40-90 club, was incredibly efficient, and really helped the Nets. So this launches into my last and final point. How does this affect the Nets, right? If Kyrie doesn't play, how do the Nets fare against other teams? If he doesn't get traded, it's certainly going to be a lot closer between a lot of other teams. I see it as really three people that could give the Nets some problems in the playoffs with Kyrie not playing. And like even with Kyrie playing, but that's a whole different thing. I could see the Bucks giving the Nets some problems. They gave them problems last year. The Nets would have won that series if Harden wasn't playing on one leg like he was in the end of the series when he came back. And granted, Kyrie was there for the first two games. But yeah, the Bucks could definitely give them some problems this year. They got a little better this offseason, the Bucks. They signed Grayson Allen. They got Rodney Hood, who could be okay if he's healthy. I think Grayson Allen's going to help a ton. That playoff run certainly helped to build chemistry and just get that team to be more tight-knit, and they certainly have some hunger to run it back. So the Bucks could give them problems. People could disagree with this, but I think the Heat are going to give them problems. Really good defensive team. I think Kyle Lowry elevates every single one on the floor through the preseason that we've seen. Granted, it's preseason. But from that sample size, his pick and roll with Bam Adebayo is going to be deadly. He's even helped Tyler Hero have some really good games. Him and Jimmy are going to do some fun stuff together. And I think the Heat got a little deeper, and if Victor Oladipo can be like 70% of himself, the Heat can be a really good team, and even without that, they can. Really good defensive team. I think their offense is underrated in some people's eyes. They can be a really potent offense, really fast-moving offense, too. And I think they could give the Nets some problems if Kyrie's not there. Kyrie puts them over the top versus the Heat. But yeah, I think the Heat could cause some problems. I'd still take the Nets in that series, but yeah. And the Lakers, which is the likely team to emerge out of the West, they could definitely give them some problems just due to the trio that the Lakers have, Westbrook, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. Their depth, they're okay defensively. I think they could expose the Nets on the defensive end just like with their veteran guys and the sets they run and the type of looks they get. I just don't know how the Nets would defend against that. They've gotten better defensively, but I definitely think even with Kyrie, the Lakers are going to give them some problems just to how well-rounded they are. Pretty solid shooting team, going to be great in transition. And it's just a team of smart guys that can pick apart the Nets. So those are three teams I could see really giving the Nets a challenge. The Nets are better with Kyrie Irving. All hope is not lost with Kyrie gone. I think they're still going to be a really good team. Harden and Durant, one of the best scoring duos of all time, the best scoring duo in the league right now. And you've got some really good shooters there. The Nets got better this offseason with Patty Mills, LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap, Cam Thomas, who's going to be a pretty viable scorer off the bench. So yeah, the Nets definitely aren't doomed whatsoever. I still think they're the likely team to make it to the finals out of the East. Still a really good team. This Kyrie situation is annoying. I want to see him play. That's it.